Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for our event exploring political polarization in America. My name is Greg Seams. I'm the Assistant Director for the Institute for Freedom and Community here at St. Olaf. And we're thrilled to have the Theater of Public Policy and Samara Klar and Bill Doherty here with us today for this exciting conversation. This is the second event in our fall series exploring patriotism, nationalism, and the idea of America, and we're so glad that you all are here as we think about the values that all of us hold dear about our communities and our country and why we're so divided about them nowadays, possibly more than ever, and what we might do to move forward together as we try to navigate these uncomfortable but important and necessary disagreements. Before I introduce our guests, I want to make sure to thank a few people who helped make this event possible. Of course, my colleagues at the Institute, Edmund Santuri and Shannon Regier, Molly Work and the whole marketing and communications team, Jeff O'Donnell and the broadcast crew, and the staff at the Pause here for being such great hosts. So hopefully you know the Institute for Freedom and Community was founded at St. Olaf in 2015 with the goal of encouraging free inquiry and meaningful debate of important political and social issues. By exploring diverse ideas about politics, markets, and society, the Institute aims to challenge presuppositions, question easy answers, and foster constructive dialogue among those with differing values and contending points of view. So it was with those goals in mind that we happily stumbled upon Theater of Public Policy, which is self-styled as Minnesota's best-loved, most successful, and coincidentally only civics-inspired improv comedy show. A reviewer at the Star Tribune described them as C-SPAN being swarmed by the cast of SNL, and they pride themselves on getting people excited about the hard, thinky stuff by unpacking complex issues and diverse perspectives in a unique and engaging format. We're similarly excited to be joined by two experts who will help the theater unpack this thorny issue of polarization. Bill Doherty is professor of family social science at the University of Minnesota and a senior fellow with the Better Angels organization, which is a nonpartisan citizens movement working to depolarize America. He's a widely published author of for both academic and general audiences, and is a distinguished member of the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy. Samara Klar is Associate Professor of Political Science at the University of Arizona and an expert on public opinion and political behavior in the United States, especially on the connection between individuals' partisan and personal identities and their broader impacts on American politics. Her research has been published in a number of important outlets, including the American Journal of Political Science and the Journal of Politics, and she's also the founder of Women Also Know Stuff, which is a website that helps promote the expertise of women in political science. So, we're all excited that you're here. We're so excited to see what this group has in store for us. So, without any further ado, please join me in giving a big St. Olaf welcome to Bill Doherty, Samara Klar, and the cast of the Theater of Public Policy.
Tremendous introduction. Thank you so much, Greg. So my name is Tane Danger. I am the host of this show called the Theater of Public Policy. I always like to start shows like this, so by a round of applause, please applaud if you have never seen the Theater of Public Policy before. That is the most applause we get in a show. So, what do? We talk to two very smart people up on stage about a big idea. We open it up for you all to ask questions of them about that idea and set of issues. And then we have this team of amazing improvisers who take everything that we have talked about and they bring it to life through entirely unscripted improv comedy theater, all off the top of their heads. This seems like a very appropriate moment to welcome to the stage the cast of the Theater of Public Policy. Please, a big round of applause. Yay. Carmen, Alexis, Heather, Brandon, and Fred. Yay! And now, look at everything's already set up because we already have our guests up here, and I'm so excited to talk to both of you. So I already mentioned this to you, Mr. Doherty, before we started the show, but we were doing another show earlier this week with Star Tribune columnist Lori Sturdivant, and it was a conversation about the Minnesota election that's coming up, and somebody asked her the question, well, everything seems so divisive and so polarizing. How can we possibly pull back from this? And she said, well, Bill Doherty can fix it probably. So no pressure, but by the end of tonight, you just need to fix polarization. Speaking of which, I was just we talk a lot about polarization. People feel like we're more polarized. Are we? Are we actually like more apart as a country than we have been previously?
Sure. Well, when it comes to issue positions, we're actually not as polarized as you might think. But when it comes to the way Democrats and Republicans view each other, we are definitely more polarized than ever. So Lily Mason, who's a professor at Maryland, calls it disrespectful agreement, where Democrats or Republicans actually agree on a fair number of issues, and their perceptions of polarization are really big. So for example, some political scientists at Stanford asked, where do you think the other party stands on this particular issue? And they find that there's this huge perception that people are very, very far apart on issues when in fact they're not. What is real, however, is that Democrats and Republicans really don't like each other all that much. They don't want to talk about politics. They don't particularly want to be near each other. And we call that social polarization.
And is that more so now than before?
Oh, yes. Yes, very much so.
And so you decided, 2 years ago now with Better Angels?
Right after the presidential election. Do you remember that last one?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But so 2 years ago, you were like, oh man, people are getting to be more and more polarized. It would be fun hanging out with people who are really polarized. What's wrong with you? Tell us, what led to this? How did you come about with this notion?
A few days after the election, a friend of mine in New York, Blue Land, called a friend of ours in Ohio, Southwest Ohio, Red Land, and said, how are things out there? And the guy in Ohio said, it's hope and change, morning in America. How are things on the Upper East Side of Manhattan? Gloom and doom. And they decided on the spur of the moment to get 10 Hillary voters and 10 Trump voters together for 13 hours over a weekend in December.
Is this like a cabin in the woods kind of situation?
They just know, it's a church basement.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
And they called me, and I said, well, that's brave. Who are you thinking what are you going to do with them? And they said, we don't know. We were hoping that you could tell us, that I could tell them.
And this is new for you, though. You hadn't solved polarization previously.
No, I just solved problems of family life in America. And then I decided to move on. That was a joke. But I'm very interested in groups and people who are different, and I've been doing some of this work, but not around politics. So we got together in mid-December, and it was great, and we went from there.
How similar or different have you found it to be to try and engage folks in a political discussion with your background was a lot in family therapy and counseling and I imagine, couples and things like that. So what's similar, what's different in those kinds of groups?
Well, what's different is that in families and couples, they do love each other, even though they're mad at each other. And now we have people in different tribes who don't even want to talk to each other. So that's harder. But the similar thing is, in working with couples in therapy, you have to create a structure and a process that brings out their better angels, not their worst angels. And so I applied that to this. So we do not have people go at each other. We have people listen to each other.
So you had noted already that maybe the differences aren't as stark as they might seem or we perceive, but our interpretation or our understanding of where the other side is does seem to be more extreme than it has been previously, that we sort of presume that do we have a sense of why we assume worse of each other than we used to?
Well, one of the reasons that a lot of political scientists have found is that our social identities and our partisan identities tend to be more aligned. So there tend to be a lot less homogeneity within the Democratic Party than there used to be, and even potentially more so among Republicans, much more homogenous than it used to be. Liberals and conservatives are now much more likely to choose their respective parties. So we don't see a lot of liberals identifying as Republican. We don't see a lot of conservatives identifying as Democrats. So the differences are just much more pronounced. It's much more easy to assume somebody's party affiliation very quickly.
And so we were talking a little before the show, and you have done some experiments where you have talked to people about, well, what is it that, or you both, in both cases, what do you sort of think of like people of the other party? Or what do you say about yourself, like when you are introducing yourself as a member of a party? So can you just talk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, sure. So one of sort of the most common question that we see on polls and surveys is, generally speaking, are you a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent? So if anyone has ever taken a political survey, you've probably encountered that question. So we took a large sample of about 1,000 Americans, and we asked them that question, but we randomly assigned a third of them to give us the answer that they think would make the best impression if they were meeting someone new. And we randomly assigned another third to answer the question as though they were trying to give the worst impression. And what we found is the worst impression was kind of split between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats said saying Republican makes a bad impression. Republicans saying Democrat makes a bad impression. But they all agreed that saying you're independent actually makes the best impression. So Democrats and Republicans seem to agree on the fact that independents are the most desirable people in our country right now. Even more than their own partisan affiliation.
They get asked out on dates more often than
yes.
others.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah.
I mean, you found this in your research, didn't you?
Yeah, we found that independents, when we randomly assign party affiliation to actually just computer-generated faces, independents are rated as most physically attractive. They're rated as
So
most
now let me ask, how many people
likable.
are independents in the audience?
They're most trustworthy, they're most likable, they're most attractive. So Democrats and Republicans, we found, actually prefer to be around independents than they do to even be around people from their own party.
And so you started with this group in a church basement where you locked the doors and then you said, we're all going to talk and get together. But you've done this 100 and some...
Well, yeah, been 180 workshops around the country.
You've done this
Not
over
personally,
and over.
but I've done it a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
And Minnesota is a hub for this work. So we trained 50 people to lead the workshops, and they're happening all over the country now. We have two kinds of workshops, red, blue, or 7 reds, 7 blues. For either 3 hours or a full day. And the goals are to understand each other beyond stereotypes. See, I'm thinking about your study. We don't have a lot of negative stereotypes of independence, right? Maybe we'll get there, okay? But to understand each other beyond stereotypes and to see if they can find common ground. That's what we're about, not changing anybody's mind.
So just talk us through like a couple of, what is one of these exercises that you do? So you've got 14 people in a room, 7 red, 7 blue. What's one of the things you do with them?
So they all begin with a stereotypes exercise. Blues go in one room, reds in the other, and they come up with a list of the top 5 negative false stereotypes of their own side. What do other people think of us that is wrong, exaggerated, false? And then for each of they vote on those, and then for each of them they go through and in column A correct the stereotype. If they think so, if they think we're racist, what are we instead? Okay? If they think we're for big government for its own sake, what are we instead? And then the second question is there a kernel of truth in the stereotype? A kernel of truth might be something, a subset of your group, something historical. It may be a blind spot. It may be how your group comes across in public. And so we're asking people to be self-critical and humble. And when they can pull that off, mostly they do, then there's a reporter from that group who reports out to the other group, this is what we think people think of us, this is how we see ourselves, and here's the kernel of truth in the negative parts of us.
So I'm curious, again, trying to tie together the work that both of you do. Are the things that like Bill is asking his groups to do, are the fact that people probably, I'm assuming, can probably come up very quickly.
No problem.
With like those negative stereotypes of what, is that why people are like, I don't want to be affiliated with any party. I don't want that label.
Yeah, we find that a lot of it comes from, not to blame our friends in the media, because we love them, but a lot of it comes from the way partisans are portrayed in the media. You turn on cable news, you're looking online on social media, and most of the portrayals we see of Republicans and Democrats are really angry. We see a lot of insurmountable conflict. We see a lot of bitterness. And that's not only in media coverage. Frankly, politicians are doing a really good job providing that fodder for media. So one example we did was we asked some research assistants to code every presidential debate transcript over the last 50 years, and to show the percentage of phrases that convey insurmountable conflict, so an argument that just cannot be resolved. And we saw that percentage increase exponentially over time, and we didn't even include the 2016 debates, which is rather terrifying. But up until that point, we just see so much angerness and so much bitterness. Most Americans do not want to be associated with it.
So, and there's a piece I really would like for you both to help me unpack here, because, so we're the theater of public policy. We have this interest in policy, and yet, going back, if you are looking back at these historic pieces, a lot of issues are much more malleable, I guess you would say, or they kind of float between the parties in ways where right now we just like imagine, oh, of course, like, well, up until a couple of years ago, you would say Republicans are definitely the party of like free trade and like open economies and whatnot. And Democrats are much more willing to do something like a protectionist tariff or whatnot. And then we have a president who just flips that or whatever, and now it becomes much more messy, I guess you would say. But does policy actually play into this, or is it all just sort of our perceptions of each other and sort of how we ID ourselves?
Well, it's hard to say. I have seen some more optimistic work recently suggesting that potentially if we start to see partisans who have counter-stereotypic policies, then we tend to be a little warmer towards them. So a lot of partisan animosity is based on these assumed stereotypes, which are not always correct. And as you're pointing out, a lot of them are factually incorrect when it comes to the policy preferences that our elites hold.
So is this like the phenomenon of like, oh my gosh, like a conservative author wrote something mean about President Trump. Now we love him. He is part of the hashtag resistance.
Yeah, there is definitely some of that where people are willing to embrace somebody across the aisle if they can. I mean, in that case, it would be to find a common enemy, but also if you could agree on a policy, for sure.
I mean, how much, when you start to get folks talking and like trying to move past some of the stereotypes, I don't want to presume. What happens? Tell us what.
Well, people don't change their minds mostly about policies. They change their minds about each other. Mm-hmm. They see people on the other side as thoughtful, not robotic, not doing just talking points. They see people on the other side as disagreeing with each other about gun control, for example, abortion. So they don't see them as a monolithic, kind of uninformed group. They change their minds about each other.
Again, as we were prepping for this, we were talking a little bit about this study that gets bandied about a lot, and I know David Brooks was here recently. Is he in the audience tonight? About that more and more people say, oh, I wouldn't want my child to marry somebody of the opposite party. And A, I'm wondering if that is something that you hear, and B, I know you were saying that might be more complicated than it is, but...
Well, the big finding is that in 1960, at the same poll question, only 5% of people said they'd be uncomfortable with their child marrying somebody of the other party. Now it's up to 35 or 40%. So there's been, and interestingly, discomfort with interracial marriage of a child has gone in the opposite direction.
Oh, that's interesting.
So we become more tolerant in some ways and less tolerant in others.
But you had looked at some research or done some research that suggested maybe there's more to that story than just, I'm a Democrat, I don't want my kid to marry a Republican.
Yeah, some co-authors and I reran that survey, but this time we randomized it into a bunch of different conditions. So one group saw the original question, which is, would you be unhappy or happy if your son or daughter married somebody from the other party? But this time we asked, what about if they married somebody from the other party who never talks about politics? And we asked, what about if they married somebody from your own party that talks about politics all the time? And it turns out that people would actually be happier to have their child marry someone from the other party if they don't talk about politics than they would have somebody from their own party jabbering about politics all the time at Thanksgiving or whatever. So a lot of this was, the question tends to suggest that this hypothetical in-law, about whom you only know their partisanship, which is in itself slightly problematic, is a real political activist. I mean, if somebody says, hey, Dad, this is my boyfriend, and he's a Republican, and that's all you hear, it's pretty safe to assume that he's very involved in politics. And that is what people really don't like. People just generally seem to dislike partisanship as a concept.
This is so interesting, though, because your research and the work that you're doing suggests people want to separate from some of this, and yet, at least to me, it feels like it's consuming more and more of our lives, like conversations about red versus blue and like the cable news, which is problematic for a lot of reasons. But I mean, news generally, I imagine once upon a time it was more you had like a politics segment on it, but now that's like all that it is. It's like everything through this like lens of what are Democrats saying about this, what are Republicans saying about this, what is this fight like? But you're saying that people are actually retreating from that. So why I guess is the culture and the media seem to be increasing that then?
Well, there is a minority of Americans who really are into it, who are very ardent supporters, and they tend to come out and vote, and they tend to really engage with politics. So if a candidate wants to raise money, if they want to get volunteers knocking on doors, if they want to have people putting up yard signs, those are the people they really need to cater to. So I would say this is a shrinking but increasingly vocal percentage or proportion of the American population.
When you are doing these workshops, is there any point... one of the pieces of advice somebody gave me once is like, oh, if you want to get along with somebody, talk about something else first, other than the politics piece. But it seems like, no, you're just going in like
people
the
come
whole
to talk
time.
about, we're not going to talk about your favorite dog growing up. No, we go
Lhasa, but
we
go
go
on.
right in. We ask people, the first question is introduce yourself and say why you came. And then people say, I'm worried about our country. I'm worried about the divisions. And that's why they're here. That's how we start.
And so let me ask you, where are you going? Like, do you have a goal? Do you have a measure of like, is this working?
Well, we have evaluations of the individual workshops. We have, and we are now beginning to attract money. We started this with no money whatsoever, and we decided to build it and then start to attract funding for things like long-term evaluations. That's where we're heading. Right. But our goal is to contribute to the reversal of this polarization in the country. And I can tell you that we're beginning to attract interest from even political folks. So next week there's going to be a Better Angels workshop on Capitol Hill between staffers, red staffers and blue staffers. And just today I met with legislators in Minnesota who are going to try to pull together, after the election, a workshop with Republican and Democratic legislators. So we're beginning to attract interest at that level.
I don't mean to, because I think that you two complement each other in your work a lot, and so I don't even know if this question sort of pits you against each other. But how does your work suggest whether or not Bill's work is going to succeed? I guess, does it? Is there some element of what you've been studying and people becoming more polarized that would say something about whether this work and experiment...
You're inviting her to say, give it up?
You could take that money, open it up, Better Angels Cabo, and sit on the beach. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, one thing I love about Bill's work is it does something that political scientists do very rarely, which is actually bring people together. So a lot of social psychology and academic work on social interaction gives people these surveys where it says, okay, imagine that you're with somebody from the other party, how would you feel? And inevitably people say, I'd feel angry, I wouldn't want to talk to them, I'd feel repulsed. And I have done some work where I actually bring students together, Democrats and Republicans, in small groups, and I find exactly what Bill finds with students, that when they're face-to-face and they can actually connect with each other, they do tend to, in some cases, and I know this isn't the goal with Bill's work, but in some cases they do moderate their opinions or they express more sympathy towards the other side. Most importantly, they tell me that they would like to have more diverse discussions in the future, so they actually enjoy discussing politics with the other side, which most respondents would say they would never enjoy. So I find a lot of definitely common findings there.
Thank you. I can keep going.
Yes, please. Carry on.
Yes, thank you.
So she mentioned your goal is not necessarily to have folks come out and be like, oh, now I'm like...
Purple.
No.
So we explicitly disavow that. You can come in with strong views that are very different from the other side and leave with those strong views. Our goal is to help people change their views of the other people.
Give us an example of like a time you've seen that's just, when you're making the commercial for Better Angels, like who will be the stars of that commercial?
I have the stars.
Tell me.
Our second workshop in Ohio, Greg Smith, a strong Trump voter, evangelical Christian, former police chief, construction worker, who came to convert everybody to Donald Trump. He ended up sitting next to Kuyar Mustafi, who is an Iranian Muslim immigrant and a Democrat, strong Democrat on the county committee, Democratic committee. They connected. And at the end of that workshop, when we asked people, what do you want to do next? They said, we're going to visit each other's houses of worship. And they have become friends. And the reason I can use their names is that they have been in the media. They're poster children. They have become friends. And there's still a Trump and non-Trump and Democrat, Republican. Now, if you ask me, have they been influenced with each other? Yeah, this probably as they come to understand each other. But they have become Better Angels, and they are the co-chairs of the Southwest Ohio Better Angels Alliance.
So I should remind folks once again, we're going to open it up for you all to ask questions in the second half of the show. But I like to try and think about things, if not this, then what? So if, Bill wasn't doing this work, if we weren't trying and just things kind of kept progressing the way that some of your research has shown is progressing, we have more divergent views of each other, what happens then? Like if that just keeps going?
Yeah, well, what we find is as people develop these divergent views of each other, they become self-fulfilling. So one example in my work is I find that Democratic women and Republican women, for example, are developing really different ideas of what it means to be a woman. And what's happening is that common identity is actually driving them further apart. So in a series of experiments, I find that Democratic women and Republican women have more hostility towards each other than they do towards men from the opposing party. So where we tend to think about gender as sort of this uniting force that maybe women from both sides of the aisle will come together, that's in fact not the case at all. And the reason is because our partisanship is now affecting how we interpret even our non-political identities. Now, I would suspect that if we brought these Democratic and Republican women together, perhaps face-to-face in some sort of a workshop or a discussion group, then we might start to see some bridges of understanding.
Yeah, let me add something to that. When people, the other thing they see in the workshop, they see the others as more complex, but they also see that they share some common values and common goals. Everybody wants our children to be well educated. Everybody wants people to have access to health care. Everybody wants the country to be safe. We have policy differences, but what happens is in the rhetoric of public debate, if we disagree about the policy, we assume we have different goals. We want different things. We have different fundamental values. So a very common thing people say is, I realize that we share more values and a lot of core values in common, even though we differ on how to get there.
On that very optimistic, positive note, please, can we do a tremendous round of applause for our two amazing guests, Dr. Bill Doherty, Dr. Grab this. So, as I promised, what we're going to do now is we're going to turn the stage over to the cast of the Theater of Public Policy. So, everything that they do is entirely made up on the spot. So, they are going to take just what we talked about and use that as their jumping off point, their inspiration for unscripted improv comedy theater. Everything is all made up. It's all off the top of their head, so be generous. And make a big round of applause for the Theater of Public Policy!
Oh. Well, I am so glad to have such different groups together, the lactose intolerant and cheese. I am really excited to get both of you in the same room for the first time. We have Gouda and mozzarella here, and we have lactose intolerant and dairy-free. I'm so excited you're here to just get together.
They're out to get me.
We've wanted this relationship for a really long time.
Right,
We're willing to cross lines here.
Oh, I'm cramping up already just thinking about it.
I just feel like they're really not giving us, they're not giving us space to like really get to know us.
Yeah. Closer, come closer.
Oh, I don't think anyone wants to be that close to me if I've had dairy.
Get further apart.
But
the thing is, we want you to have a healthy body. And we want to be consumed as cheese, as our identity, as we truly are.
We just want to be accepted, that's all.
Yeah.
I just want to eat pizza without having to run to the bathroom.
Oh, man.
Well,
You
maybe
know,
that's...
And that's not mutually exclusive with you. Sorry.
Okay, it seems like we're not really moving anywhere. Perhaps let's try a new tactic. Cheese, give us a core value at the same time as dairy-free, lactose intolerant. You will also give a core value on 3. 1, 2, 3.
I'm tall.
Health. Health?
I said
Health
health.
and-
I said health. I said tall.
And you said tall.
I'm not really that tall.
Okay, so we have 3
Wait.
healths and a tall.
Oh,
That's
wait a minute, but
similar.
sorry. They must mean health in a different way than I mean health.
But we both...
Well, how does cheese feel about health? What do you mean when you say health, cheese? I mean,
Calcium, for one, is obviously a very important contribution to the system.
yeah, healthy
Okay.
body fats, healthy, caloric intake, gives you energy for day-to-day living. Oh, very nice, very nice. Now, dairy-free, lactose intolerant, what do you mean by health /tall?
I want to look good. I want to live a long time. I'd like to be less gassy.
All right. Here at the hashtag resistance, we expect nothing but entire, complete discipline. Private,
Yes.
don't just stand in the wings. Now, here at the hashtag resistance, we have a very important mission. Have you read your reports?
Yes. We have.
Private?
I said yes
Oh,
too.
well, I would like a rundown, please.
The senator wrote a very funny tweet today that is in line with our values. Do you want me to read it?
Please.
It's a joke that it's kind of a meme. It's a picture of someone.
Describe it to me.
Okay, so it looks like the face of a dog, but it's kind of edited, and it says "Healthcare for all."
Healthcare
hashtag.
for all.
Yes,
But a
they're
picture of a dog.
but they're part of the resistance.
How so? I don't see pictures of cats or mice or other groups. How could they be a part of the resistance?
I mean, this is kind of an informal resistance, isn't it? It's not the.
I don't know how you got in here. Lieutenant?
Yes. We are a monolith. We are an ideological monolith. I don't like this weakness.
Do you have what it takes to be part of the hashtag resistance?
You came here on a Wednesday. You know what Wednesday means?
I didn't have anything to do.
That's what Wednesday means. What else is you came here during the weekday on a Wednesday?
You keep saying that.
Yeah, you were out at work. You're not at school. Wednesday's just this throwaway day, and you came here because you needed something from us.
I thought we were gonna share jokes together, and
Oh, it's so great to finally meet you. Your profile picture is attractive.
Gosh, I have to say.
Have a seat,
Oh,
please.
okay.
They have great pasta here.
I haven't done a lot of online dating.
Oh, you
in fact,
haven't?
no,
Let me
know.
tell you, nobody out there is very attractive, but you, just you had the perfect profile, you had the perfect bio, what a catch. I feel so lucky that you said yes.
Oh, thanks. I mean, all I put was that I was politically independent.
Yes, hello! We're moving quite fast. I mean, we could skip dinner.
I mean, I couldn't care less about politics.
Woo! You are so handsome.
some
Wow.
bread for the table.
Oh, thank you.
Nice one. Looks
I-
independent.
I know.
Well,
so,
you know.
so if I would say something like elections, what would be your response?
I didn't even vote.
Oh, yes! Oh, this is great.
No,
You're the perfect man.
Gosh.
I mean, I didn't expect it to go this far today, but I planned for this.
Oh my. Wow.
Will you accept this voter registration card that is not filled out, and don't fill it out?
That's such a non-commitment.
Yeah, it's a non-commitment commitment.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Your food's gonna be ready soon. I just wanted to say, if this doesn't work out, you should give me a call. Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's obvious. It's a metaphor for political dysfunction. Couldn't be easier, you
Yeah.
know? I think if we show this to people, it's gonna flip their minds. They're gonna look at this and say, oh, I can't keep living my life like two chairs bumped up together.
Yeah, one of them you can sit on.
One of them you
can
can't.
sit on, but it hurts.
It's
uncomfortable.
why are we divided?
Oh my gosh, people can have a lot of uncomfortable conversations sitting
Boom.
on this chair.
You wanna test it out? You wanna do some research on this?
Absolutely. Let me sit on this uncomfortable chair.
All right,
Yeah, you sit on the other chair so that we can have.
Bring in the first subject.
Is this?
Yes, you're in the right place.
Yep, you're in the think piece.
So look at this.
Is this art?
This is our political divide.
Is this art?
How does this move you?
Is this a storage room or is this an art room? Or are you guys doing a thing? Do you think that's a fuse box? Because that is an installment. Oh, And that's a fire distinguisher.
No! Oh,
Fire
actually, that is a
distinguisher
fire
or extinguisher?
Yeah, that one senses if it's a fire or
Does
not,
it
and that
tell
one
you-
puts it out.
yes.
But you're right, that is safe equipment.
It's this relationship. I find you very attractive. We have so many things in common, and it almost is like kind of like it makes me sick. It's like I'm looking for someone that I don't have things in common with. That I like the sky and someone who likes to look at the ground, like maybe something like that. No.
Well, dear, I like the sky too, and I would just like to have someone who likes to look at the ground, so we really are quite a good fit. I think it's time for us maybe to have kids.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, listen, my mom and dad, when they heard that you were the complete opposite politically but didn't want to talk about it, they were so happy.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not completely opposite. We have a lot of views that just kind of line right up.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm thinking that maybe that's not something that's for me.
Oh, well, you know what? That's something that's not for me either. So, again, this works out perfectly.
Oh, how does it?
Yeah.
My parents, I'm blue, right?
I love blue.
You love blue. I don't know how.
Hi, welcome to the Better Devils Project. We are going to get you set up. You're going to be fighting in no time.
Awesome, I'm ready. I brought a pitchfork and a whole bunch of curse words.
Oh, good. You can use those during the stereotypes section.
Sweet.
Where we just name stereotypes of the other person and let them just kind of lie there.
Short!
Oh, you're getting started.
It's not right now?
No.
Got it. Well, you're short.
Actually tall.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So, we're hoping to get
What's that
people
smell?
more-
You stink!
Wow, you're just right at this already.
Hey, that's what I'm here for. I'm here for
totally.
the fighting
I
part.
get it. Yes, come in. Come in, stupid.
Yeah. Dum-dum.
You want to dance? You want to dance with this?
No.
Get out. I'm sorry, you are in the right place. This is the...
I just put that there.
Yeah, well, I'm putting it down.
Put it back.
Short? You know what? Pink shirt? Yeah, you're all alike.
It's magenta.
Oh, magenta! You think the same as your friends, and you never go out and read. And I think that's dumb. That's dumb. That's really dumb. You're dumb. You think I'm dumb. You're dumb. I'm dumb for thinking I'm dumb. That means you're dumb. You're dumb. We're different. You're dumb. I'm smart. You're dumb. I'm smart. You're dumb. Seriously, I can't hear you above my intelligence. It's really, really hard to hear the dumb stuff. You said my shirt was pink. It's magenta. That's a fact that you are dumb. You are
elitist.
dumb, dumb. You
You're
are dumb,
elitist.
dumb. You are dumb, dumb.
You are dumb.
I am smart. I am smart. You are dumb. You
I
are
am
dumb
smart.
for thinking I am dumb. You are dumb. I am
my
smart.
point.
You prove my point, because you can't listen. You are dumb.
This is great research.
They just keep moving the furniture around, and it's you have company over, and
I know.
they just run around like they don't
Yeah,
even care. It's like, did we teach you values?
But listen, I think you're really gonna like Bob and Susan. I met them online, and
Okay.
Hey, Bob, Susan, come on.
yeah.
Come on in. We are so excited to finally meet you in person. We when we met in that politics forum, we had all the same views.
It
I think
was
this is really
wild.
gonna be great.
We really appreciate you guys showing up. And
yeah.
we really appreciate that you trust us to do
Yeah,
therapy.
Let me just fix your collar a little bit.
yeah, it's
so much
okay.
sincerity came on.
I appreciate
I
your
gotta
hands
see you
on.
You know,
Thank you.
helping you
There's
out.
just the 2 chairs for
Oh yeah,
us.
that's
Yeah, please have a seat.
But they're 4 of us.
Oh, don't worry.
Oh,
We
you-
conduct the therapy session.
Yeah.
It's-
Well, you just,
I'll just use my big girl.
great.
voice.
Okay, just helping you
There
out.
we
Just
go.
helping you out.
All right. So, would you like to tell us a little more about your relationship?
We're married.
Yeah, but you know that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We had
yeah.
so much in common.
Yeah, like you're married, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've been doing co-therapy
That's right.
since
Yeah.
college. Yeah.
Yo, so just as a refresher, I mean, you guys agreed to this because you thought the best way to save your marriage was to be just like us.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
I think we had a lot to learn from you. I
it
don't know
seems
about.
like a lot's going right for you
Yeah.
two.
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
you know, we like to. Like we are. The thing is, we bond over our differences. Right? It's like so we start like this. So first, I start with things that I love about myself.
Yeah.
I'm perfect. I'm a great cook, and I pretty much do all things right. That's just my perception of myself.
I like
And I
that
start
too.
there.
Yeah,
I
and-
like
And
that.
then Daryl does him. He does it
Yeah,
himself.
yeah, yeah. And so I think that, you know, I'm a very giving husband, and I work really, really hard, and I have patience for how much Sheila thinks of herself.
No, I get that. That's kind of like us.
I can see you like that.
Yeah.
And the way I feel about myself, like, some doesn't necessarily have to reflect how we feel about one another. Like, every once in a while, he can maybe wash a dish, right?
Right.
Every once in a while.
Yes.
But we want to hear from you guys, right?
Well, I mean, that kind of sounds like you.
I mean, and you, for
Well,
sure.
A little bit, not the nagging part.
Oh, but like the don't do any
yeah.
dish part, for
yeah,
sure.
but I mean, you're more conservative, and I'm more of a
I
kind
would say I'm more like good at what I do, and you're more lazy.
Well, just sweetie.
I think we modeled something different than what you're doing here.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
sure
yeah.
what you saw here.
Okay. Oh, please. Oh, I'm so sorry. Clarify.
Oh yeah, like I said, we're very unified. And well, for example, let me tell you about some of my more positive perceptions.
I love hearing about your positive things.
Okay. Well, this is why we're in therapy. I'm doing therapy. We're therapists. Something positive. Somebody remembered to put the emergency brake up yesterday when they pulled into the garage, because why wouldn't you, right? Because it's a stick shift and they roll when they're in neutral, So that's so good job.
And I love switching away from the football game to find out what happened on This Is Us.
What did happen?
Okay.
Please come in, have a seat.
Oh.
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of tricked you under these pretenses. It's just you're the only person I've ever met who doesn't like to talk about politics. Everyone else just wants to talk about the good or the bad, but you just wanted to talk about dressing up dogs for Halloween in different costumes that you make for yourself.
It's true.
I need that escapism. I can't live out there anymore.
I think that you're looking for somebody to please your parents. I'm afraid that that's what you're looking for. You just want to please your mother and father. You know how us not talking about politics people are. We're hot on the market. And all I get are proposals day in, day out.
Oh, that's
from men and women who want me to be their spouse so that their parents will be happy.
I'm sorry. I'm laying a lot on you. You're right. It'd just be so refreshing.
Oh, hey, son, is this your new dog dressing up friend here?
Yeah, this
Oh.
is Mary.
Mary, here, nice to meet you. Yep. I just wish Trump would go jump in a lake.
Dad!
Have a good time, kids.
I'm sorry.
I'm used to it by now. It's all right.
Sweetheart, is this
God.
the girl? Is this the girl? Hi,
Yeah.
nice to meet you. I'm Martha. I'm the
dad
mother.
just left.
Hillary's emails. She's
no,
terrible.
Mom.
Okay.
I won't even talk about it. I don't
It just
talk about
brushes
that.
right off of you.
Well, I just don't talk about it.
I got an announcement to make with the family. Hey.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
This is Mary.
Tiffany. Hi. Hi, Tiffany.
She's the one who
My
doesn't talk
sister.
about politics.
What? Oh.
Just nothing.
Well, that's kind of why I'm here. I don't know where mom and dad are, but I've had something on my mind for a while.
Yeah.
And I just think now's a good time for me to
come out about it.
Wait a minute, what are you gonna say?
In purple.
The Theater of Public Policy, everybody! Yay! Thank you so much. All right, so please keep that round of applause going as we welcome back to the stage our two amazing guests, Bill Doherty, Samara Klar, everybody! Yay! All right. So, as they are making their way up here onto the stage, this is the part of the show where we open it up for you all to ask questions of our guests. But we like to give you a chance to practice. So if you would like to turn to the person next to you and ask them a question that you would actually like to ask of one or both of our guests, you'll have a chance to rehearse a little bit and make a friend. Okay, ready, set, go! All right, if you have a question, please raise your hand and I will come towards you at the microphone in a non-threatening manner. All right, any questions? Raise your hand for, yay, it's the person hardest to get to. Okay, here.
First, I want to say hi to Bill. He recommended me for licensure for marriage and family therapy about 40 years ago. and I'd like to ask if either of you are familiar with and use the work of Jonathan Haidt, Righteous Mind kind of stuff.
Yeah, John, actually, you can be in the in crowd now. His name is pronounced Haidt. That may be the main thing you got out of everything I've said here, Jonathan Haidt. Anyway, so he's a social psychologist who studies moral intuitions, and his very interesting. He's on the board of directors of Better Angels, and he talks about how liberals and conservatives tend to emphasize different moral intuitions, and it's a way to try to understand one another.
Can you help unpack that for us a little bit? So what are the different moral intuitions that he...
Well, just real briefly, harm and care is one, and that's universal. Justice and fairness, everybody thinks about those. And conservatives tend to also emphasize other values like tradition and authority and hierarchy and sacredness. So the flag as a sacred symbol has more powerful meaning to conservatives who would just be more offended and troubled by something that's disrespectful to the flag. And in general, liberals tend to not have the same power behind that kind of intuition.
Interesting. Okay, other questions? Other folks have hands? Yes.
This could be for either of you guys. At St. Olaf, do either of you have any advice for trying to break down barriers in the classroom or in dorm discussions about politics or kind of those difficult issues? What's your best way of approaching those when we're having peer discussions?
Well, can I ask you to maybe say, like, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but how do they break down? Like, could you tell us a little bit about when they don't work? What do they look like?
I think it's a lot of people being afraid to share maybe I think this campus leans liberal in general, so I think it's sometimes hard for people to share what they would view as minority opinions. So what are some ways for us to kind of open those discussions?
Great, thank you.
Sure, well maybe I'll talk about what I do with my students, and then if you want to talk about what you do in more formal settings. One thing I love doing with my students is I do a anonymous poll at the beginning of the semester, so it's anonymous, nobody's name's on it, and I ask them for their party identification and for their views on particular policies, and then I show the data to the class. And that, University of Arizona also leans left like most colleges do, although it's probably a little more ideologically diverse. It's a fairly diverse group of students. So that allows them to sort of see the diversity within the class. Often, because they're young, the Republicans are sort of comforted to see there's other Republicans in the class. And it also allows them to see what their views are. And the first thing Republicans and Democrats always notice is how their views are so much closer than they assumed. So I asked them about particular policies, particularly on social issues. They're all so close together. Generally, they're all pretty moderate to socially liberal group. I will say that interestingly, and I don't know if this is your experiences anecdotally, the one issue where I see the most division among my students is gun control. That seems to be the policy that really divides Democrats and Republicans, at least at the college age. But sort of once they get an idea for what their views are, they often will start to talk about them sort of more autobiographically, so where they came to those views. So for example, when it comes to gun control, which is the most divisive issue among my students, a lot of the students talk about growing up in rural areas or having bonding experiences when they're with their parents when they were young, where they would, go shooting, go to ranges, and these were really important experiences for them as a kid. So these are kinds of experiences that everybody can relate to. Everybody remembers that thing you did with your dad when you were little and how important that is to you. So I think kind of showing the autobiographical side to these policy views has been really helpful for my students. And it's one of my favorite things. I mean, probably my favorite thing as a political science professor is the ability to talk with my students about their views. But you probably have more formal.
I'll just pick up on that. Storytelling instead of policy points, right? The more personal people are in these discussions as opposed to bullet points. And then the other thing is, if it's a group that gets together over time, you could just explicitly ask, is this a place where we can have differences? And I encourage people, if you're, listen first, be curious, and then if you are in a political minority in a group, you could ask, is it okay if I express some viewpoints as a conservative or as a liberal? In other words, claim your space, claim your stance, and ask if it's okay we can talk about that. And so those are just a couple of points, but I am really worried and concerned on our college campuses these days that conservative students often feel they have no place, they have no voice, and then they have two options in classrooms or informal conversations: to just be silent or to be oppositional. And one of the things that I'm doing now, I've been asked by college instructors and others to be of help to them in how to create an inclusive space for conservative viewpoints and conservative students. It's not hard to do, but it has to be intentional.
Bill, can you say a little, we talked just a bit before the show about this skill of, because you said listen first. How do you practice listening? Or in workshops, how do you get people to practice listening?
Yeah, so we have a Better Angel Skills workshop in which we teach these skills. And so a lot of it is curiosity. First, be interested in what the other person says. Listen, paraphrase it back. Did I understand that? Ask a question that is a clarification question, that's a deepening question, that's not a gotcha question. If you do that, then people are ready to listen to you. And in fact, so if I've listened to you for a while on gun control and asked you where you got your views, then when I give my views, if they're different, they're more tailored to exactly what you said. I can acknowledge where you're coming from, and then I might say, well, I grew up in an urban environment where guns were scary and people got killed, okay? And that's part of why, so we now are connecting as people. But it's curiosity first. I heard somebody on the radio, a marketing expert the other day, say a sales expert. Good salespeople listen 70% of the time and talk 30% of the time. They want to know what somebody needs. And so if you want to practice Better Angel skills, practice listening, practice curiosity, 70% of the conversation, and then share your own.
Like 7% of the time is listening.
I knew
yeah.
you were going to get that's
okay,
going to show
so,
up in what you do over there. I know. I'm going to be careful now because they're going to exaggerate it and make fun.
No,
okay.
It's such a safe space. Okay, other questions, other hands. Okay, yeah. I'll come over there and then all the way in the back over there. Hello.
What would you guys say about
third parties. I know in Better Angels you guys only have it red or blue, but what if it's someone who truly identifies with a third party like the Libertarian Party who doesn't consider themselves an independent? How do we either give them a voice on campuses, or how do we actually try to understand their points when they're such a minority?
So I'll respond first in Better Angels, and I know this is your area of research. But what we've seen in our work is that, libertarians are almost all red, socialists blue. And that in our experience, most people who say they're independent, if they're interested in politics, it's because they hate the parties. But they lean red or blue. They lean more conservative, more liberal. And so that's not been a big issue in our workshops. We just ask people, which way do you lean? And then come to the workshop.
Yeah, I get asked a lot, given that, there's a plurality of Americans today are independents. We have more independents than Democrats or Republicans. And that's true nationally, and that's true in, I think, maybe 10 or 15 states. So I get asked a lot, why third parties aren't more successful. And the truth is, people really want to vote for a party they think can win. And there's so many institutional barriers put up, against third parties. So it really is very hard for a third party to win. I mean, so for example, in Arizona, just to get on the ballot, I think you need 3 times as many signatures if you're not affiliated with a major party. So just these sort of small institutional barriers every step of the way. So a lot of Americans really do want to support one of the parties. They want to vote for a party that's actually going to win. And that's why it is so hard for independents and for third parties to make any headway. I think that most Americans can identify which of the 2 major parties they would rather see in office. It's rare to meet somebody who says, they're the same to me. I mean, no difference. Most people can identify a difference, but they might not necessarily want to associate with either party because, as you indicated, the parties are just so negative. So, I'd say the third party support is probably, it would probably be much bigger if people felt like their third parties actually had a chance.
To that question about people hate associating with the parties, they have a negative view, and yet they probably can or do maybe. I think you were saying before that the closer we get to an election often, the more people are willing to identify with one. Is that not so much because they're like, oh, I'm hearing this side say the things I like, or more so, I'm hearing the other side say things that I hate enough that then, so I'm going to just affiliate with this other side, even though I don't really like them either, but I can't let those guys win.
Yeah, so we use the term now negative partisanship, which sort of suggests that you're a Democrat not because you're really Democrat, because you hate the Republicans. Or you're a Republican, you just hate the Democrats. And that is really increasing. So one of the most common reasons we see on exit polls for why you supported a particular candidate, so the other candidate would lose. That's increasingly common.
Is there anything to be done about that?
I think one factor would be if parties and candidates had more positive messages. So already in the 2018 midterms, just in the ads that we've seen so far, 42% of ads have been attack ads. That's a terrible percentage. In 2016, we had one of the most attack ads we've seen in like a decade and a half, I think it was. So the more that candidates are only providing negative information about the other side and not actually providing positive information about themselves, then you can expect that voters are going to use that information just that way.
Okay, there was definitely a hand here.
Yeah, I just had a question about the research you mentioned about gender and political identity, and I was just wondering if you could elaborate more on that. Just like point me to a study or something, because I'm really interested in it.
Sure. So it's my study, so I can send you a link.
There's copies in the back. She will sign them.
There's a really famous theory in social psychology called the common in-group identity model. I won't go on long. That suggests that if 2 competing parties share a common identity, it'll bring them closer together. And what I find is actually Democrats and Republicans have a hard time agreeing on even what it means to identify with their common identities. So for the case of women, you'd think intuitively, well, if one Democrat's a woman and one Republican's a woman, then obviously they're going to bond over that experience. But that's not what we're seeing. For Democrats and for Republicans, being a woman means something very, very different. And I think actually the Kavanaugh confirmation has really brought that out. You see a lot of conservative Republican women saying, no, I'm a woman too, and I support the nominee. Not all women oppose the nominee. So you sort of see this division among across women where they have very different ideas of how their gender role should influence their political views.
I want to ask just a couple sort of wrap-up questions here. One is just, I'm interested for both of you. I sort of asked a version of this for you, Bill, but so I'll start with Samara. What are you looking for next, I guess? You do a lot of research and things, so what's your next big question, I guess, when you're looking at independent voters, voters generally? What is the thing that you don't know right now that you're hoping to figure out maybe over the next election cycle or beyond?
What I'm really most interested in now is sort of how partisanship is affecting our non-political identities. So, like the example I just gave, are Democrats and Republicans now starting to conceive of their non-political lives in divergent ways? Before, we never really had a situation where partisanship was spilling over into our non-political interactions, and it seems that is increasingly happening, so that's kind of the area that I'm focusing on most now.
And I mean, I asked you before, Bill, about goals of the Better Angels Network. I mean, kind of going back, Better Angels, it's borrowed from Lincoln's second inaugural, right? Which is hopefully the height of partisanship in terms of a civil war. But you're doing this work, and yes, you want people to understand each other better, so that what? Like, is there a big, broader thing that you're hoping you get to?
Yes, to diminish the emotional, personal polarization around politics that is keeping us from moving ahead as a country. And so what we're trying to do now is scale this. So we're in half of the states. There's a workshop Saturday, first one at St. Olaf's, by the way, with students, Better Angels Workshop. And so our work now is to scale this, to make it available across the country. The skills workshop I mentioned is now, there's going to be an online version so everybody can access that. We're unabashedly, and the other thing I want to say is that Better Angels at the leadership level, the board, the small staff, the leaders are half red and half blue. And so we are trying to model the possibility of reds and blues working together, and we have arguments and we work it through and we stay in relationship with each other.
But these are all people who want to figure things out. Have you tried to bring people in who are completely against figuring everything out? Like, we mentioned libertarians. Are there any anarchists on the board?
We don't go around and hold a gun to people's head to say you have to come to the workshop.
So no fascists on the board
then
either.
No fascists on the board, that's right. Everybody has to be committed to the good of the country. And I want to tell a story of we did a bus trip, we rented a bus, we ran around the country early on, and we began with a concert in Southwest Ohio in a converted barn that was a performance place. And the guy who owned the barn, who donated the space, Richard Lynch, was the founder of the Tea Party in that part of Ohio. He's a country singer. And he and his band sang. There were 50 Reds, 50 Blues present, and the other singer was Peter Yarrow of Peter, Paul, and Mary. And they performed separately, and then they sang together. And when they sang "This Land Is Your Land," there was not a dry eye in the room.
Take it away.
This land is your land.
He did it. On that musical note, I cannot say thank you enough. This has absolutely been an honor, so please, can we do a tremendous round of applause for these two amazing guests, Dr. Bill Doherty, Dr. Samara Klar. We're going to one more time take our seat in the audience one last time. We're going to turn the stage over this last time to the Theater of Public Policy. Just like before, everything they do is entirely made up. It's all off the top of their heads. So please, one more time, give them a big round of applause. The Theater of Public Policy!
All right, students, we have the anonymous poll in so we can look at kind of what the political makeup is. And while it was pretty surprising, it was kind of split down the middle, 50% lean liberal and 49% lean Republican. We did have, I don't know how to say this. One person said their party affinity is to Lolth the Spider Queen. And that, I'm not going to lie, that kind of colored some of the results. And we can get into that. So on the issue of gun control, again, it's pretty divided, kind of 60 on one side and then 39 on the other. And then we had one vote for, I guess just to say, Lolth's weapons will destroy us all. I'm not sure what that means. And I don't want to call anybody out for saying those things. I just want everyone to be conscious that During some discussions, people might talk about the army of spiders consuming us all, and we want to be respectful of that. We want to make a space.
We'll make a space. We'll make a space.
I'm sorry. I just I'm just here to make an exchange, a tolerance exchange. I mean, I had before I was like okay with people being gay, and then I was like, oh wait, I'm not into that anymore. But maybe I was thinking I could
So there's
sorry,
you got a finite amount of tolerance.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah. And you just want to switch it to something else.
That's
yeah.
all.
Oh man, I got so much types of tolerance in here.
Yeah.
Man.
Just something different and new.
So yeah, I'll take the tolerance you're giving up because we only have a limited
Are you
pool.
Sure?
No.
I mean, I could always come back for it, right?
Yeah, you can come back for it. It's just as long as you want to exchange, you hourly exchanges. We have a subscription service where we can send you tolerances by mail every day.
Really?
Yeah. It's like Amazon now, but for
Top
tolerances.
3 most popular.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So our red-blue tolerance, that is by far the most wanted. And then oddly enough, gluten. Gluten tolerance is right up there. So it's odd people have to switch back and forth between those two.
Yeah, I could use that. Gluten tolerance.
Gluten tolerance? Okay, yeah. Which means that you're going to be totally intolerant of everything else, but you're going to be tolerant of gluten for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get to kind of pick and choose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, sir. I know you're waiting.
I am.
Yeah.
I'll just go ahead.
No, it's fine. That's fine. It's fine.
I'm just gonna read the label for a minute.
Okay, so I might have to take this and give you both lime tolerance. Here. Hey, I'm so glad you're here. As a member of the birthday party, I'm having a hard time finding anything in common with the people from the retirement party.
Oh, Dave.
Yeah.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
That's the only way we start.
Yeah. I want to say, speaking on behalf of the retirement party,
Okay.
that, I wish you would have said something
Well,
beforehand.
I'm saying something now.
Okay.
To our faces
Okay.
and not
Yeah.
waited.
Okay,
To this point.
I'm feeling that as a member of the birthday party,
Yeah.
that I am sometimes viewed as frivolous, and who cares? It comes every year anyway.
So-
Compared to the retirement party, which is a big deal after many decades of hard work.
So hey, I want to make this right, and so I'm gonna let you choose. Do you want to sing for "He's a Jolly Good Fellow" or "Happy Birthday"? We can
Always
sing
happy
it together.
birthday.
You sure?
And with the happy birthday, we've not one but 2 versions.
What?
We have the
Okay.
copyright-free version.
Oh.
Stevie Wonder.
Oh! I love a 2 happy birthday song. I would also like presents, always.
Oh, the song is kind of the present.
Yeah.
It is.
I have a gold watch, but it doesn't have your name on it, and it's really meant for retiring.
See,
years.
this is what I'm
Sorry.
feeling. I'm feeling birthday parties, we kind of get the short shrift of the parties.
But there's cake.
Yeah.
There's cake at both parties. That's something we have in common.
Yeah, you don't have candles. You should have some candles.
We do have candles.
Yeah, it's just, they get out of control. You need the fire extinguisher to put them out. And
Yeah, it's a different thing.
It's all spin.
I feel that we don't have any common ground.
but we sing the songs and there's cake and.
I think it's a celebration of life.
Yes. Yes.
Celebration of life. Maybe there's a little more distance, longevity, and the other, settling.
Yeah.
Which is which?
Um.
Because I feel like I'm longevity
Yeah.
and settling down.
Oh.
Ding dong.
That's a surprise. Hold on.
Oh, I love a surprise. That's a whole subset of my party. Surprise birthday party. I love them. They're crazy.
So we got
Yeah.
an impersonator. This is
Yeah.
Mary impersonator from Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Yeah.
She's gonna come.
Yeah.
Well, she was gonna come sing the retirement.
Well, actually,
song.
I was
I'm not
going to
gonna
a
lie.
bachelor party, but I can sing at these parties as well.
Don't even get me started
Really,
on
really
the
popular
bachelor
with
party.
bachelor parties. Yeah. So I'll be singing a song about a lot of things, about our hearts and our minds, and how every party is really a party of humans.
Okay.
We're
Yeah.
a part of
Party
a
and
party.
humans.
I'm okay with that, because dogs can have birthday parties.
Okay,
right.
whatever.
Right, okay. We're a party.
We're a party.
A party of four.
Party for.
Yeah, come on.
Whether
And
you're
we-
retiring.
Or a bachelor soon to get married.
Or having another year towards expiring.
It's a party.
It's a party.
It's a party if two or more people are together with cake. It's a party. It's a party. It's a party.
Things in common.
And we've got lots of beer. It's a party. It's a party. Oh no!
Join the right leading party. Join the right leading party. Join the right leading. Hey, I am the only right-leaning person on this campus. Why don't you come over and hear a little bit about what I have to say?
I don't want to.
Hey. Oh, hi, left-leaner.
Yeah, I'm leaning left.
I just want to know which side is the winning side, because that's basically I just want to do that. That helps me.
Well-
I make decisions quickly in that manner.
All right. Well, I'm not going to get a chance to say anything, so I might as well not even try.
Oh, that doesn't sound like a winning spirit. Now does
You're
it?
saying a lot. You got a sign and everything. You're ruining Parents' Day.
Well, I just want someone to hear my point of view because...
Your point of view is that you have a point of view. You haven't actually stated a point of view. You keep saying, I want to express myself. But you never actually say anything.
I never got this far before.
Janet.
Oh, Maria!
Hi.
Hey!
Break time's over.
I know this chair is just irking me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's think about what we can do to
I gotta go.
keep
break
it here.
but break is over. I gotta go, and it's just gonna irritate me sitting in here.
Yeah.
Are you gonna watch it?
Oh,
I'll
no.
go to work, and you'll watch it.
Oh, yeah, I'll watch it. I'm sure that... Thing is, the customers, they can wait, right? We've got an issue.
Yeah.
We can take a break.
We can take a break. You're the supervisor. I listen to that.
Yeah, but in the break room, we're all on the same level, so we can work together.
Yeah, this is irritating. This whole
Oh.
chair in here.
Okay.
Like it.
All right, well, let's dig a little deeper. Tell me about your childhood.
Oh. We only had benches.
You had benches in your childhood, okay.
Swings.
What sort of memories do you have about chairs?
God, chairs are for Santa Claus.
Did you visit Santa Claus as a child?
One time.
Yep, and how was that for you?
Didn't get up there line too long.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, big old throne, big happy jolly guy. Just didn't even have the dramatic moment of getting to the kid before they shut the line, like being the kid that missed the chance. No, I was still in the way back.
Yeah, tell me more.
That's kind of, yeah.
How did it make you feel?
Yeah, real insignificant.
Oh, man.
Stupid
Is
chair.
Senator Carlson is a jerk. And this has been sponsored by Senator Carlson. I know I'm live on the air, but I have in fact been paid by Senator Carlson. What's that, Deborah? You're coming in. Yes? You're in and out.
Hey. Now, isn't it true that this is a revolutionary new negative ad where he is actually being negative against himself?
That is a fact. That statement, yes, that is very true. Thank you, Debbie, for pointing that out.
All right, so that's really interesting, and improbably his poll numbers are going up.
They're going up because they see this as a moment of self-reflection
Oh.
and it's kind of an honest and authentic take of a politician that voters haven't seen before.
Oh, wait, I'm getting this just in. I think the senator is about to confess some sort of personal scandal.
Okay, hey, Steve, send that in. We're live now. Senator.
I want to thank you all for coming to my press conference. I've been going negative against myself. Because I figure if my opponent won't, then that's what this county needs. Now, I have a confession of a crime I committed. I ate my opponent. I cooked him, ate him in an oven, and he was delicious. I'm not about to apologize.
I want us to stay married.
Well, that's the thing.
I don't.
See,
I do.
I don't.
There's no way that I want you to stay married to me. I love you.
Can you help me sort this out?
Oh, please. We're
My
having.
name is Tommy Jones. I'm the country singer from Memphis.
Oh,
And
Tommy
I
Jones.
tour around and I see the vision and I just feel like I gotta sing about it.
Oh, please.
I mean, this is an
Bring
impasse.
my wife
We're an
back to me.
impasse.
Your point of view, they're both valid.
Thank you.
We're gonna find something right there.
Hi. Listen, you might recognize me. I'm Rainbow Love Child. I was in that famous folk group in the 70s.
I saw this. Yeah, you were.
It would be an honor to watch you sing from your conservative point of view.
Absolutely. I can do something conservative with my values. Somehow find something.
Please.
I don't want to be married to her.
I love you.
Start to love. This one here in the purple tells me she's feeling me. And this one with the glasses, I know she's
That's how you meet in the middle.
That's how you meet in the middle. Meet in the middle. Meet in the middle. Take your time. In the middle.
Can we do another big round of applause and welcome back up to the stage our two amazing guests, Dr. Bill Doherty, Dr. Samara Klar, yay! As they're making their way up here, I want to say a tremendous thank you to all of you for coming out this evening. A big thanks to the Institute on Freedom here at St. Olaf College for having us out. This has been a fantastic evening, and we have absolutely enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you so much for making this happen. We would like to present you with these lovely parting gifts. Thank you so much for being on our show and all of the amazing work you do. So we are the Theater of Public Policy. We are on all of the Insta medias and the social webs, and so you can find us on the Facebook and the Twitter and the Instagram, and we would love to see you again, but we'll just say that we were
Brandon Boat.
Heather Meyer.
Alexis Camille.
Carmen O'Halloran.
I'm Tane Danger. All right, so yay, a big round of applause. Thank you all so much. Am I turning it back over to Greg? No, we're just going to say good night, everybody. Eat some cookies on your way out. Goodbye.